Okay, hello. Hi, Varun. Um, so I only just uh, I'm only now just able to access the games properly, so that's why I haven't been doing reviews. Um, you can watch this in the morning before your games, hopefully. So I'm recording it now. Uh, that way, in the morning, you can just watch this before you eat breakfast or something, just before your games start. This will just be me going over your next games your previous games that you played in this tournament so far. You've done 4 rounds. Um, I'm going to go over all four of them. One of them, there was no game that your opponent forfeited, so it's just going to be 3 games. And yeah, we're going to just start off with that. So, starting with round one, your opponent was Aditya Rathore from Tanzania, and you were playing with black. So let's just flip the board. Yeah, there we go, flip the board. And we can view it from your perspective. So let's see what we start off with. We get d4, e6, bishop cf4, the London, f5. This is our Dutch defense that we were preparing. So after this, knight f3, knight f6, e3, b6. Very good stuff so far. I'm very happy with this. He plays his bishop out, you develop normally. This is all stuff we talked about, and you played very quickly, which is fine. Like this is correct moves. There's nothing wrong here. Here we you did the move d6, which is not bad at all. Very fine with that move. You're passively gaining control of the center. It's a solid move. You eventually play c5, but d6 is a good move. Queen b3. Now, what does queen b3 do? It attacks this pawn. So what do we need to do? We need to defend it, which you did. You played queen d7. Good stuff. No complaints here. Bishop takes f5. Um, this is a serious blunder, right? And I'm just going to turn off the engine here very quickly. This is a terrible blunder because although although you are pinned, although you are pinned by this, um, although you're pinned by this by the queen, you can easily dilute the pin, which is a puzzle that we talked about during our preparation. And I'm very happy you spotted that. You played bishop d5. Bishop d5 now forces him to either move the queen, sacrifice the bishop, or push this pawn. He pushes the pawn. Here, the one and only move is to just take. The reason why taking is fine is because if he takes back now, after you take, you're up a piece, right? He can't um if you take, you can't just escape, because if he chooses to escape, well, you also escape. And again, you're up a piece. And if he doesn't do that either and he takes, well, you take. You're just simply winning material no matter what. You have to take the knight. Now, you had 45 minutes and 10 seconds here. This is the 11th move. You started with the same amount of time. It's almost as if you started in this position, right? You have all the time in the world to think about. This is a crucial moment. You spend 7 seconds here. That is not good. You need to think about this because now you went from completely winning to losing. You're now, instead of being minus 2.5, you're +1 for him. It's a bad move. And I don't know why you decided to rush this. This is not a blitz game. This is 45 minutes. Again, first round jitters. I understand. Maybe you rushed for no reason, but this is what I warned you in our practice classical game. Take your time. You don't have to rush. This is not a problem. But this is I'm quite unhappy with this. But because I know very well you are tactically astute enough to know to figure this out. But if you that's only if you spend time to solve these kinds of positions, right? That only happens if you spend time to solve this kind of position. If you just rush and spend 7 seconds on a move, it'll lead to a problem. So just note for future games, take your time, because I know this tactic is quite easy for you to spot. Anyway, we miss it. We play this. So you play king h8. I don't hate the move. The engine hates it, but I'm okay with it. You're getting out of this pin. The reason the engine doesn't like it is because it allows um, both the bishop and the knight to get active. I like the knight getting active, and after the knight gets active, if you play, let's just say you waste a move, so you play h3, this knight gets a nice outpost, right? That's a problem. So that's why the computer doesn't like it. He doesn't play that. He plays rook c1. Now the best move for you here is to play h6. You play c6, and I don't know why you play c6. Um, Number one, c6 is a poor move because his pawns are doubled. His pawns are doubled here. By playing c6, sure, you may technically just activate your knight, but you're getting rid of his worst piece for no reason. You're activating your knight, sure, but there's no reason for it. This is a more imminent threat. You don't want him to get this outpost. c6 is not ideal. He takes, you take, and he plays queen here. Again, this is another problem. Now you're forced to just defend. You're forced to go on the defensive again, and you play knight a5, which um, allows this queen trade. And not only does it allow the queen trade, it allows this. And now you are losing a knight or a bishop. There's nothing you can do to protect this. And again, let's look at your time here. Here, okay, this move at least you spent some time. So, but it was unfortunately the wrong decision. You're forced to defend this knight. You have to defend this knight because even now, if he doubles up, um, you can at least force a trade of some kind. After takes, um, and if you just decide to do takes, you at least have some fighting chances. You're down a pawn, but you have some chances here. Um, and if you may be wondering why can't you just take this pawn, well, take this knight, well, his queen hacks. So yeah, that's you need to spend a bit longer on your moves so far as what I've seen. And after be losing um, a piece like this, well, you may think, oh, rook d8 temporarily saves it, but in the long run, it's lost. If you played b4, well, there's nothing you can do about this knight, right? All your pieces are hanging, all your pieces are poorly uh, placed. Knight a5 is a bad move, even if it didn't run into that rook c7. It's still a bad move because not only are you trading material, when you're down material, um, you're also making your knight very passive for no reason, right? This is a poor move regardless of this tactic, this rook c7 tactic. Um, anyway, after this, he just activates his knight. He's gonna win this rook now, uh, and instead he just the rest of this game not really much to be said. He just converted it kind of cleanly. He played it out until checkmate, but I just want to point something out here. Okay, you spent a grand total of 5 minutes 35 seconds net, a net 5 minutes 35 seconds on this game. Your opponent spent negative 2 minutes 50 seconds, right? He played very quickly, but if you look at the clock, right, he just played move very instantly, and there's no reason to play instantly in this tournament. Quite frankly, by playing very fast, he made a critical mistake at the start, and if you'd punished him for it, it would have been fine. But you missed out on it because you played fast. You need to take your sweet time. You have a lot of time in this game, which is why I tried to show you um, in our one classical game. I wanted you to get used to um, that idea. Okay. But that's all there is for this game. The opening was fine except for that one mistake, and yeah, from there it just went a bit downhill. So that's all for round number one. Now we'll move on to round number two. Okay, so round two, here we are. You're now playing white this game against Boshoff Francis from Namibia. So when I saw this game, I was a bit surprised because you started off the game with e4, which is not what we'd prepared. We'd prepared the King's Indian. I thought you were going to play the King's Indian, but you didn't. You decided to play e4, which, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but um, why not use your preparation? But one notable thing about this guy's a rated player. You beat the rated player. So by winning this game, you will have a rating if you play a couple more rated players across this tournament. Anyway, so You start off with the Italian. There's nothing new here. This is all stuff that's happened a million times before. No, this is not how you play the Italian. Uh, this is called the gioco pianissimo. Sorry, this is called the gioco piano. When you play C3, but when you play D3, it becomes the gioco pianissimo. And the idea behind the gioco pianissimo is that you attack with on the queen side with B4, A4, right, and then eventually A5, bring out the pieces this way. But you didn't do that. You just went straight for this attack, and this is not the idea. If you want to play for D4, you have to play C3 first, and then you either have to play C3 first, or you go for the Evans gamma and go for B4. That's the idea behind it. Instead, you opted for this. This is not ideal. You just lose a pawn straight up. If he'd gone D5, for example, takes. If he decides to take this way, that's fine. I mean, your pawn structure just sucks. Or if not that, what he did in this game was also fine. Like you just lose a pawn this way. There's no reason for you to have played this. And the game goes from slightly in your favor to equal to slightly in his favor. It's not ideal. Now this was a bad move. You played so in this position. Let's look at what's here. Um, your bishop is undeveloped. His knight's in the center. This pawn is hanging. Your king is not. Your king doesn't have a safe square. Uh, this knight is a bit isolated. This knight is you can easily attack. You can push this pawn, for example. But um, what's what you didn't do any of those. You played queen d3. I'm assuming the idea behind queen d3 is you defend this pawn. Um, which is not inherently a bad idea, but the problem is it runs into d5, and what d5 does is even if you just move back, he gets all the development in the world, right? You walk into this pin. Um, that's the problem with again, that's a bit harder to see, but once again, let's check out your time usage. You just keep running. Like I understand being a bit fast in the opening, that's not the worst thing in the world. Being fast in the opening is fine, but once pieces start getting traded off and you're no longer in theory, which you're not in theory here. This is not theory for you. When you start running this kind of position, you need to start thinking, right? You can't just be blitzing out moves, which is a common theme here. So for your games tomorrow, both your games tomorrow, I really, really, really want you to think very carefully after the opening, during the opening, and especially during the end game. Take time for every move. Okay? At least spend 30 seconds per move. Minimum. Seriously. Okay, I don't want to impose minimums like on something like a basic recapture, but you need to really consider all your options here. Think about it, right? What are the threats? What does his move do? What is happening in his position, right? And I know that if you thought about, you would think, oh, queen d3, what would his next move be? Oh, he'll attack my bishop. Okay, I have to move my bishop. Oh, what can he do? He can develop his bishop, and now there's this discovered attack just looming, right? You see this what's happening when you just look at it this way. Queen d3 is not ideal. You wanted to defend this pawn, which is fine, but the option for that was queen b3. Queen b3 was in my opinion the best move because not only do you protect this pawn, you also set up this battery. Do you see? You set up this battery on the king, and it's a bit of a threat. Anyway, queen d3, he misses it. He plays knight f6. Um, there is no reason for him to play knight f6, but again, he also played relatively quickly. He thought for a while actually. He thought for about 1 minute, but this is a bit of a miss. Here you play bishop f4, good move. You connected your rooks, and if he decides to trade, it's good for you, but he doesn't. So he plays d5, bishop b3, all good. Bishop g5, bishop g4. Now this is a bit poor because it allows you to activate your knight, and I'm very happy you played this move, knight e5. Now look at this. You thought for 2 minutes 30 seconds here, and look what happened. You played the best move in the position. This is what happens if you think and you sit and you think, I know you can play well. So play this kind. Just start thinking about your moves, and you can do better. So in this position, he opted for the move bishop to e. In this position, he opted for the move bishop to e6. This is poor because if you decide to trade, look at that damaged pawn structure, and this will become a weakness long term in the endgame. You didn't take, you went with bishop a4, which is okay, but the problem is danger levels. If he takes, you're forced to take, you can't win the rook, right? If your queen was on d2 or b3, that wouldn't be a threat. You can just take the rook and then take the knight. But anyway, uh, he moves back here, and taking is still very much an option to just purely damage his pawn structure, but and which is what you do. And the computer may not like the move. I'm fine. I'm perfectly fine with this move. I feel like it's okay. It's the reason it's listed as slightly worse than it was here is because in this position he has pawns on light squares as well as a light squared bishop, which is worse. Whereas now in that what actually happened, you've traded off his light squared bishop too. Do you see what's happened? You traded off his light squared bishop, and uh, his pawns, although they're still weak, they're not as weak. So that's why the position now just shows is completely equal. So rook takes e8, knight takes e8. This position is relatively equal. You set up this threat by taking on h6. He avoids that by playing king h7. You go with queen d3 check, moves back c4, not bad at all. He does the best move. He plays rook b8. You take, he takes. This is not a good move. The reason this is not a good move is because if queen takes, sure, his pawns are still doubled, as you can see, but his queen is very active, his rook will become very active, and his knight will get it will pop into the game. So this is, again, it's mostly a draw, but you need to be very precise here. It's a lot of it's a lot harder position for you to defend than it is for him. He took with the pawn instead, and this is mostly a draw, but no, it isn't. You play rook b1. Why is rook b1 bad? Think about it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or pause the video if you need more time. The reason the reason playing the rook there is bad is because after this, he can activate his queen, and if you try and defend it this way, look at what happens in the long run. He gets all the activity, and you're just a bit stuck. Your pieces get your queen is just stuck in the corner. His queen is going to get active. His knight's going to come out eventually, and it's just not a fun position to play. And again, he misses it. He misses it. He plays c6, which is just not the best move. And you play queen b7 again, right? Your king not having a safe square in all of these positions is a liability. You need to just keep a safe square for your king. h3 would have been a perfectly fine waiting move. H3, uh, queen a5, here, check, and this position is now just a theoretical draw if you play it perfectly, but you don't. Knight and bishop endgame, knight bishop and queen endgame is quite complicated. He blocks at the pawn. You need to just try and force something here. Like here, you can make some mistake. He'll think, oh, I'm losing my knight, and if you take with check and you just go back, well, takes like this is now just officially a draw, and if this is something you could have opted for, but instead what you did was you played bishop back here, which just gives away a free pawn. um, you win a pawn back. This position is still honestly a draw in my opinion. It's not too bad, but this blunder ruins it. The reason this blunder ruins it is because what you needed to do is you needed to prevent this knight getting into the game. But by doing this, you allow the knight to get into the game by playing queen a3, knight here. Um, even if you can like force this, even if you try and like force this trade, for example, or let's say he doesn't take. If let's say you play, let's say you play something like d3, um, he has this passed pawn that's virtually impossible to stop. Like another thing you need a very common game idea that I'll mention is when you have a promoting pawn and you have a bishop, it's very hard to defend the pawn if it's not the same color as if the promoting square is not the same color as your bishop. As you can see, you have a dark squared bishop. His promoting square is a light colored square. If this pawn was here, it's a different story. Your bishop is a lot stronger in defending this pawn, but it's not. Your bishop is a dark squared, and the promotion square is a light square. That is harder to defend, so this position is worse for you. That's something you need to always keep in mind in these bishop endgames. Okay. Um, with knights, it's different because knights can go on both squares, both colors. So this move, if he had pushed, he is just completely winning. Um, but he plays d3, which is next best move. Um, this is a blunder. He should have just activated his knight. And if you'd gone for this check, it doesn't make any difference because you don't have more checks after this. And there's no way to prevent you from stopping this pawn. Literally no way. No matter what you do, you cannot stop this pawn. If he does this, you can try and run, but this knight is now too active. You've allowed the knight to get active, and that's the problem. As you can see, activity in endgames is king. He blunders it again, queen e2, but here I want you to notice something. He has at least spent some more time on his positions. But anyway, here after blundering it, you play the correct move, uh, bishop e1, preventing the pawn from moving forward again. He plays knight there, which is not ideal. He should have gone knight here. The reason is you don't have a check, number one. But other than that, it also is just slightly better because if knight here, if you play knight here, now you push, for an example, you he can bring his king in easier. Whereas if he does it this way and you push, for example, well, first you shouldn't push. You have this check, like I mentioned, and if king goes back, you can win and force a perpetual, which is interesting to note. Like the main difference between these two is if the knight goes here, it defends that square, which prevents check, and if the knight goes here, it doesn't prevent that square. It doesn't protect that square, so check happens. Knight f6, you play this. Not the worst move, honestly, but the check was there. Um, Knight here again, check. I'm glad you found it. You win the pawn now. Check, and he blunders mate into. This I won't lie, you got a bit lucky. He just didn't want to draw, but you got a bit lucky here. He blundered mate in two, and game is game. You're probably getting a rating from this. He's a rated player, so you'll get a rating from this. Moving on to game three. I'm not too exactly sure what happened. You were meant to play someone from Sao Tome and Principe, but I'm assuming they just didn't come. So there's that. Game four. Again, you play with white, and I saw you once again did not play the Italian, and I'm not sure why that is. Um, you decided to opt for e4. Sorry, I mixed up what I was trying to say. You once again opted not to play the King's Indian, and you opted to play the Italian. I don't understand why you're doing this. We prepared the King's Indian for some time. I gave you lines and ideas on the King's Indian. I really recommend you stick with it. Right, that's all I'm saying. So maybe for tomorrow your first game you'll be playing black, but try and stick with what we did, right? At least for this tournament. Right now your team's not done too great. Um, you've lost 2 rounds, won 2 rounds, but there's still 4 more rounds remaining. If you can win the remaining 4, you can potentially medal, right? So you should just try and give your all for all the remaining games. But anyway, e4, e5, knight f3 again, same old Italian, and this is his idea. So with rook e1, which is a perfectly fine move, he plays um, knight g4 with this side. Obviously, they have taking on this pawn. You play you play bishop e3, which is not ideal. The best move in this position is just to actually move forward because if he decides to take now, well, a knight and a knight and a bishop is much better than a rook and a pawn, so you're winning this trade. So, whereas by doing it this way, he can trade his knight for your bishop, which is worse. That's the problem. So by bishop e3, he takes with the knight, you take d6. All that happened. So this is slightly worse for you actually. D6, h3, it's a fine move, and he just gives away this bishop, this trade back. I don't know why he didn't just why you didn't just take it. This is giving you a symmetrical pawn structure, giving you a higher likelihood of a draw. Um, this would have been much better for you. Instead of that, you opted for bishop b3, hoping he takes you. I'm not assuming why. I'm assuming it's to your idea was to open up your h file. I'm not too sure. Um, he didn't do that, and once again, you just let him to take, but he didn't take. And I don't understand why you decided to keep the tension so much. Even here, why you still didn't trade is beyond me. But the rest of this, other than the trade, everything else in the middle game, in this part of this game, is fine. You've gotten rid of your doubled pawns, which is great. You still have a decent control of the center, and you've you've pushed everything properly. You have two good center pawns here. But I want you to notice something, right? Taking with your C pawn in this case is worse. Why is it worse? Well, pawn islands. Let's look at this. Right now you have 1, 2, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? You have two pawn islands. You have two pawn chains. At this trade, if you take with the e pawn, you still only have two pawn chains. Remember, pawns are good together in a row, right? But when they're all separated, they're easier to pick off and they're worse in an endgame. So when you decided to take with the C pawn, what you did was you created a third pawn chain. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but 1, 2, 3. They're all separated, right? This is like um you it's like instead of you and both your friends instead of you and all your friends hanging out, you're saying one friend goes left, one friend goes right, one friend goes in the center. You're not as strong when you're separated as you are together, right? The same way goes with your pawns. You need to be together for them to be strong. This is a crucial idea that you missed in the end in this middle game, which I'm a bit unhappy about. You need to try and, although I understand you capture towards the center, you need to try and think about pawn structures more. C takes, bishop d5. Now here, the only move is to take, right? You have to take and you took, and you move the knight back. This is completely okay. Um, here, your whole idea was central control, so I'm not understanding why you didn't play e4. E4 would have forcefully kicked him out, and then you can further develop. You have a good strong center here, which can eventually lead to some attacking ideas. You decided to play rook f1. I'm assuming that is just, oh, okay, I have a discovered attack, but no matter where you go, right? Like it's not a very strong one, right? He can easily move out of it, which he did. He played queen g6 the next move. Knight d5, and there's nothing here. Bishop d6 and queen e1. Queen e1 does nothing because when you play queen e1, you walk into your own pin, right? And he spots it. He plays rook fe8, which now you're forced to get out of this pin again. You play queen f2, which gives him complete central control, right? And if you now plays bishop g3, um, the position's completely turned on its head. You are losing this pawn no matter what. You're going to lose this pawn no matter what. You are lost here, essentially, right? This is again what I talked about, the pawn chain. If your pawn was on c3 and d4, they would protect each other and they would be very strong and bind it. But here they're not, and they get picked off if your opponent played properly. But he didn't. He played rook e4, which blunders this, and you may think, oh, this gives away a pawn, but it doesn't, because of this brilliant idea, knight f5. If he decides to just defend it, well, guess what? He is stuck being passive forever, no matter what he does. You are winning a piece some way or another. Look at this. This rook is trapped. The rook can't do anything. The rook can't go anywhere. That's a bit of a long shot, but you need to understand that how powerful that rooks on their own are not too strong. They need to be together and protected. Uh, and this is a significantly better move because it allows um, great central control and the activity of pieces. Rook e4, knight here. He just moves back. The rest of this is not too bad. You trade off this knight for no reason, because now after this trade, you'll guess what? You have this extremely weak pawn that can just be picked off very easily with something like queen d6, and it's hard to defend this pawn now. Queen e4, queen d2, rook a d8. One thing I will say though, this game I'm a bit happy you spent a lot longer in time in terms of thinking, but yeah, I think you were just a bit hazy on some of the ideas you needed to consider pawn structures a bit better, but other than that, not terrible. Queen e4, queen d2, rook a d8, rook e1. The rest of this is not too bad for now. We now get to this move, queen b4. This is a one move attack. I understand your ideas behind it. It threatens this knight. It also thre threatens this pawn, and it's still protected because it's a one move attack on the knight. Um, the knight just moves out. The reason this is considered an inaccuracy, the reason this is bad is because again, you have weak pawns, right? When your pawns are weak and your pawns are all separated, they're easier to pick off. And if you try and defend it this way, well, you'll lose your knight. So yeah, it's hard. It's hard out here, right? You gotta really you'll really struggle to defend all your pieces. Instead of that, he played f5, queen c2. Just not ideal. Like you're just moving your queen around without doing anything. Um, he does this, c5, which is one of the best move, which is the best move in this position actually. The reason c5 is so strong is because well, you can't take because this knight, the rook is hanging. You can trade, but guess what? You can't trade either because it's the same thing. Um, yeah, you just lose the pawn, right? This pawn again, it all comes down to the pawn structures that I was talking about. After this, you play queen e5, which is the best move. C takes, and you play queen takes a7. This is a huge blunder because after queen takes a7, he has many moves here, rook c8 or knight here. I'm gonna go with rook c8. With the idea behind rook c8 is now if you go rook e1, this way, look at this. You can just never escape it. This is a passed pawn. He's gonna be up material, and it's just brutal. You go. He's more active. He has a passed pawn, and you just can't defend this. Quite simply, you're gonna lose material eventually. Um, he instead plays the move d3. This is just a bit too early, right? D3 is a bit too early because he's he's moving the pawn from a square where it's defended 3 times to a square where it's defended twice. You can apply a bit more pressure now with queen f2, and now you can blockade much easier. With this idea behind blocking a pawn is called a blockade. It prevents it from moving forward, and therefore it can't promote. A pawn that can't move forward can't promote. So this allows you to create like a defensive fortress and just preventing a loss, which he missed, understandably. Um, you play the move queen b6. This again is the same blunder because it allows the same idea of just activating the pieces and promoting the pawn, but he missed it. Knight g3, king out, which is a huge blunder because of this check. If you go back, uh, again, this pawn just becomes too powerful. Since you've allowed so much activation of the pieces, uh, you're going to struggle to defend this pawn, and the rest of this game just revolves around this one pawn. All your mistakes revolve around this one pawn. He just wins this rook, and from this point, it's just over. 2 queens and yeah, ladder mate. That's the problem. So again, main issues. I don't know why you went with the Italian. Again, you're fine with the Italian. I know you've played it a lot, but try and stick with the King's Indians. It's simple ideas, and we already discussed them. Number two, consider pawn structures in all your games. You gotta look into them a bit nicer, and that's it. Good luck for your remaining games, your remaining 4. I'll go over them tomorrow when I see them. Yeah, that's it.